Shabbat Shalom. This week we begin reading the Torah from the very beginning, from Bereshit. So it seemed appropriate, since Bereshit tells the story of creation, to stand by the lake. So I speak to you this afternoon, this evening, with a Shabbat message from the shores of Lake Michigan. Living with 3 teenagers is a humbling experience. Each day I learn a great deal, usually by one or another child pointing out just what I don't know. Frequently I'm told that I must gain awareness on a perspective I didn't even know about. My language is wrong, my understanding of history is wrong, you name it. Each day I'm challenged to look outside my bubble, and each day I am made awfully uncomfortable as I wrestle with pretty much everything I thought I ever knew. It's challenging, it's exhausting, and it's great. Really good. Very good. These daily challenges really do cause me to look at even the basics of what I thought I knew with new eyes. This week is no exception. This week we begin Torah at the very beginning with the story of creation. 6 days of creation, 1 day of rest. The portion is pretty straightforward and is familiar to many of us. We have the days of creation, the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, the serpent, Cain and Abel. Straightforward stuff, the stuff that's also found in literature and theater and the movies and how many illusions that we're familiar with. It's so basic that we could just skip over it and say, oh, I know that story, forget it. But let's look again. It is so basic that it is profound and wise. In our world in which so much is conflated, confusing, or confabulated, some basic lessons from Torah are here. Basic lessons that maybe, just maybe, I hope and pray, we can all agree on. Lessons that we can even bring to our lives and our world right now. And so in this spirit, and in the spirit of 6 days of creation, I share with you 6 lessons from Bereshit, from the story of creation and beyond. I invite you to listen. I invite you to, as you listen, challenge yourself, allow yourself to be uncomfortable, and join me in looking outside your bubble. Number 1. Words count. In Bereshit, God creates using words. Yahi or, let there be light. And there is light. The impact of these words is constructive and positive. We are taught explicitly in Torah that words matter for good and for bad. Later in Torah, we're told to avoid gossip, to avoid bearing false witness. And our rabbis throughout the ages are clear. Do not repeat negative words about another person, even if you know they are true. Words can create. Words can kill. Words have power. Number 2, Ki Tov, see the goodness. When God creates the world, God says, Ki Tov, this is good, 6 times. And at the very end, God surveys the scene of creation and says, Hine Tov Ma'od, this is very good. The world starts out in chaos. And step by step, using words, God creates the natural world and its structure. That could be overwhelming, for sure. Yet the eternal stops along the way and notes the goodness at each step. Imagine if we, in the chaos of our world, stopped. Amidst the disruption, amidst the worry, what if we stepped back every day and said, Ki Tov? We notice the goodness and say aloud, this is good. Number 3, to till and to tend. Adam, the first person, is placed in the Garden of Eden, ultimately to be joined by Eve. The instruction given is that they're in the garden of Da'u l'shamra, to till and to tend, as some translate it, literally to work it and protect it. The Garden of Eden was the precursor of our world today. It was perfect, our world is not. But our ancestors in that were given responsibility to do work in the garden and protect it. Expand that teaching to us and to our world today, to our environment. We are responsible. We need to care for our planet, our world, our climate. We need to engage in physical labor and advocacy. We need to shrink our carbon footprint. And we need to use our resources and our skills to protect our world. This is about making sure that we have a world today to live in that is safe, more safer. This is about having a world to pass on to the next generation. It is on us to till and to tend. Number 4, B'Tselem Elohim, in God's image. Each of us is created in God's image. Torah is clear. Each of us, all of us. So what does that mean? It means that each of us has a bit of God in us. All of us are thus equal because we are created from the same, from God. No matter our race, our religion, our roots, each of us has God within us. And each of us then must treat the other as we would treat God. The biblical teaching gives us today a very high bar. It compels us to ask ourselves, how do I treat the person I really can't stand? How do I speak to the person I don't agree with? How do I communicate and dialogue with the person who votes differently from me? The person I walk by in the street, the person who makes me uncomfortable, you name it. How do we treat each of them, all of them, as if they were God? I'll let you decide your own answer, but I'll give you a hint. It has a heck of a lot to do with kindness, patience, and respect. Number 5, own up to your actions. You know the story. Adam and Eve are in the garden and they're told, don't eat from the tree in the center of the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But they do. And then when they're asked about it, they take no responsibility. Adam says, she told me to do it. Eve says, the snake told me to do it. They disavow all responsibility for their actions. Then they're punished, kicked out of the garden. Really? Blame the other person? Classy. Adam and Eve are punished. They're kicked out. Had they changed their behavior, had they acted differently, owned up to their actions, to their mistakes, who knows what would have happened? The story could have ended differently. So what do we take from this story? Well, we could learn from what Adam and Eve did and do the opposite. We all make mistakes. We break the rules at times too. But pointing to the next person and say, he told me to do it, or she told me to do it, or they told me to do it, not so much. When we own up to our mistakes and our transgressions, there's got to be a better ending to the story. And 6, am I my brother's keeper? Yup. You may recall the story of Cain and Abel. Torah is clear. Cain blew it. He kills his brother out of intense jealousy, and then God says, where's your brother? Cain responds, am I my brother's keeper? And God responds quite clearly, not quite saying yes, but saying yes. Saying, your brother's blood calls to me from the ground. In other words, yes, you are responsible for your brother. The obvious connection from this story to us is that we're in charge of our siblings. Okay, my sister, your brother, we get that. But it goes beyond that. We are responsible for others, whether they're our family or not. We can't let people die because we don't wear masks. We don't get to say I'm not responsible for people who are locked up because of their immigration status. And we can't just say it's not my doing or my care if someone doesn't have access to health care or health insurance. We are responsible for our brothers and sisters, whatever their place in our community, whatever their socioeconomic status, whatever their background, whatever their, you name it. We are our brothers' keepers. We are our sisters' keepers. And so, think about that. We are the keepers of those around us. We are created in God's image. Words count. We can see the goodness. We have a responsibility to our environment. We can own up to our actions. They're pretty basic lessons. Pretty basic truths from Torah that, sure, in some way or another may make us uncomfortable and may having us nodding our heads with affirmation. They're in Torah. They're ours. So here we are in Shabbat. Bereshit tells us that on the seventh day God stopped. God rested from the massive work of creation. So it's on us. Let's stop the Shabbat. Let's survey the scene of our world. Let's survey our small bubbles and the world outside of it. Let's survey what we think we know and understand and then challenge ourselves. Let's challenge ourselves to bring these teachings to our lives, to our world. We can do it. We can reflect, we can change what we think, what we do, and bring them to our deeds, to our words, to our votes, to our community involvement, you name it. Today, tomorrow, next week, election day, next year, you name it. So do me a favor. Take another look at these lessons with me. Challenge your assumptions. Be uncomfortable. Be humbled. Take these teachings and bring them to your words, to your deeds, to your voting, to your community involvement, to your advocacy. Today, tomorrow, election day, every day, you name it. Let us together work to make our world better, more human, more godlike. And then together let us say, Hine Tov Ma'od. This is very good. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.